Hi there everyone, and welcome to my MET ePortfolio capstone project for the MET program. The first thing that I want you to notice as you're looking at it is that I designed it for simplicity. So it's supposed to be beautiful, it's supposed to be full of imagery, and it's supposed to kind of take you away to the place that I was when I was doing this program. And so as you can see by the rotating pictures of nature, then nature and travel and landscapes are going to be a big part of my metaphor. But to start out here on the main page, you can see that I've got the links up at the top, and we're going to scroll down because at the bottom, you've got a picture of me and kind of a description of what this portfolio is supposed to be about. So you'll see that I really wanted to highlight a few of my focuses in the MET program, and that would be digital literacy, transmedia literacy, and neuroscience and education, along with learning management systems, and the ability of online learning to provide high quality education to students living in rural settings. And this is kind of what my focus in the program became, but I really wanted this portfolio to be kind of a journey through my transformation from where I started in the program to where I finished. And so you'll see as we progress through, we start out with where I was in the beginning and we end up somewhere different, but still kind of wonderful. It's important for you to know too that not only was I experiencing this change in my outlook towards education, but I was experiencing this personal change both in where I lived and just in who I was. I was growing up a lot. When I started the program, I was living in the Middle East, and throughout that time I moved back to Canada, and I eventually moved into a small community in the northern Yukon to get my first Canadian teaching job. And so all of that kind of plays into how my outlook in the program shifted throughout my enrollment. So I think that we need to really look at that when we're looking at the course. But let's move on to the first page here. So if we go up to the top, you can either click on metaphor at the top, or you can click onto the next button at the bottom to transfer over. So on this page we talk about my metaphor for learning that I use to express my transformation over the course. And just to know that in my life, travel is such an important thing. It's kind of my purpose for being, and I think that my travels have brought a lot into my teaching practice because I'm able to pull from real life experiences. And so when I had to come up with a metaphor, travel just seemed like the most obvious one. And so I wanted to organize it more specifically, so I found this chart, Google's 5 Stages of Travel infographic, and I believe it was designed for marketing firms, but it worked really well for my purposes. So they described the 5 stages of travel as dreaming, researching, booking, experiencing, and sharing. And so those are the 5 categories that I broke down my experience through the MET program, and I feel like that worked really well for me. It was quite apt, and we'll go into more detail on the different pages. So we can click at the top again to go next, or we can click on the next arrow, wait for it to load. So dreaming and travel would be dreaming for where you want to go, seeing those pictures and just going there in your mind. But dreaming in a master's program for me was more dreaming about what I wanted to do in education and what I thought I could change. So this page is basically just about my dreams in the MET program. And so when I started, I was living in the Middle East, and I saw the issues that faced them there. And so I really wanted to change things. So for my first artifacts, I included my research question from EDUC 500. And it was, how receptive are female secondary schools in the United Arab Emirates to online learning? That's just over here. And so I wanted to really look into that because I really felt that for me, I saw online learning as kind of a solution to a lot of the problems that they had in their education, and just to expose girls to just more options and more ideas. And so that was really my dream in the beginning. That's why I took the program. That's why I came into the MET program. But it kind of changed as we went, but still we're in dreaming. So back at the beginning of the program, I also took the Venture Technologies course, ETEC 522, and we had to create a video for a venture project, and so I made a video trying to get backing for this new school that I wanted to create in the Middle East to help girls. And so I wanted to market it to that consumer base. And if you'll watch it, you'll kind of see where I was coming with that. So then on to the next page. So researching the trip is when you have this dream and you start to actually put some information behind it. You look up how to get there. You look up the cultural attractions, the cultural norms, accommodations, things that you might want to do. And so with the MET program, I had this dream of creating better education for girls in the Middle East, and so I wanted to research that. So to expand on my research question, I included here my literary review, and that's where I kind of looked into all of the research that already existed on the topic, and I saw where my question might fit in. That I might mention that EDUC 500 was the course that I took in person in Vancouver after I came back, and I thought that was kind of interesting to be taking it on campus when the rest of my courses were online. But it worked out really well, and I think that I was at a place where I was ready to pursue that sort of dream, but as we'll see, it might have changed. And then you come down to the online learning website that I made as part of ETEC 512, which was the theory course. And this just, we broke down theories in online learning, which would be really important were I to put my plan for an online girls' school in place. So this just breaks it down into the different theories that me and my peers felt spoke to us, and we just kind of explained them there, which would be an important part of researching, is just having the background for what we wanted to get into. So finishing up with our researching, we're going to click next and go on to our booking. So booking and travel, I think for me, is one of the most exciting points. It's when you buy your tickets, you're dreaming, you're researching, all of that is becoming a reality. You know it's going to happen, you've got this date set for it. And so to transition into the MET program, this is when I moved from, I moved to the Middle East to Vancouver, and at this point I moved up to the Yukon taking a job in a small community. And so my dreams for research in the MET sort of became reality, and they sort of shifted because of what I was exposed to and what I thought that I could do, and now that my kind of path had changed a bit. And so we start seeing some of my new passions emerging for education, and so I've got a few projects or a few artifacts that kind of explore that. So here we've got artifact 5 was for ETC 522, and we made, we're exploring digital textbooks, me and my group, and so we made an actual digital textbook about digital textbooks, which was fun, and I embedded it here so you can just flip through, and you can read our digital textbook. We break it down into 3 different stages, what they are, the theories behind them, and then how they can be used in K-12 education. And this was actually a super fun project. Okay, we're stuck on an ad, but it was a super fun project, and I think that it serves as a resource for people wanting to use them in the future. So this is something that was explored through my theory, and then it's kind of becoming a reality here, making one. Then going down, another one of my passions is game-based learning, and in a group I made a website. Just like the digital textbook, we wanted to make it real, so we tried to make the website into a game. How fun the game is kind of debatable, but another passion that I found through this program, and you can go check that out. And we'll go on to the next page. So this stage is experiencing. So this is the time when you're doing your travels, you're having those experiences. And so for the artifacts to relate this to the MET program, I wanted to include things that I actually did in my class. So I did my research, I found my passions, and then how did I use this in the course? So I included another group website that we made that was technology-based lesson plans. So for ETEC 532, we wanted to just give teachers a resource where instead of just giving them the theory behind technology, we gave them actual ways to implement it in their classes. And I did I can't click on it, but I did the active expression. And so that was really cool for me because I had been given a bunch of maybe I can click on it, a bunch of active expression tablets. You can kind of see it right there for my class, and I'd never really had the time to use it. So I used this course as the time to kind of figure out how I could use it in my class, and I made a lesson plan for Shakespeare that you can kind of see there, and then we actually carried it out. So that was really cool, and it was a good way to use the program to actually make changes in my course, which I thought was great. And then down here, we've got my online English course Moodle, which again, I didn't actually use this Moodle, but I used it as a way to learn about Moodle, and I used a different Moodle course just because this was an introduction in the course. I was already into the course that I was teaching. So I might use this one in the coming year, which it's really kind of cool. So like experiencing what you're learning in the MET program in your classroom is one of the best parts of it for me, is that actual hands-on, this is your course and this is directly how it relates to your teaching. So clicking next, keeping it short, we're on to the sharing page. So how fun would traveling be if you didn't get to share your images and your experiences with your friends and the internet in general? So the same with the MET program. It's really important that we're adding to this professional body of knowledge and that we're sharing our ideas and our understandings throughout the program. So for this section, the artifacts I chose relate to my sharing my learning with the world. So the first one is a wiki page I made for ETEC 510, and I did it on transmedia storytelling, which was one of my passions that I discovered through this program. And I think it's really, wiki pages aren't supposed to have authorship, but they allowed us to attach our name for the purposes of grading, and I kind of like that there is no author, so this can be built on in the future. And when you Google transmedia storytelling, this actually pops up, which is pretty cool. So I just broke it down, and then you have to write in this in a different way, so it was kind of an interesting experience, and I shared all of what I learned throughout my research. I gave lots of examples, which is cool. And going back on this Austrian internet here, I included a documentary video, and actually this artifact, this final artifact, is the course that I'm doing in conjunction with this capstone course, and so I made a video for that, sharing about, it was a course ETC 540. It was about writing and the history of literacy, basically. So I did a video about the recording of Beowulf, and it was really fun to explore this technology while looking at something that came from my my first bachelor's degree in English literature. And again, it's shared on YouTube. It's really visible, and I think that for people teaching a literature class, it could be kind of fun to include because there is some stop motion animation. So that's kind of just what I've shared in my journey. And if we click on to the next page, you get kind of a bonus. We finished my metaphor, we finished my learning in the journey, and we're going to go one step further. So I just called this page Reflections, and it's not part of the Google 5 stages of traveling, but I think that perhaps it should be, because I didn't mention it here, but you often reflect back on your travels and what you've done and what you could do better and how it changed you, and there's nothing different about completing a master's program. So I opened with this quote that Moon made, where she says, "Reflection is a form of mental processing, like a form of thinking that we use to fulfill a purpose or to achieve some anticipated outcome. It is applied to relatively complicated or unstructured ideas for which there is not an obvious solution, and is largely based on further processing of knowledge and understanding, and possibly emotions that we already possess." And so I felt like that was really perfect, on both levels. And so to conclude my ePortfolio, I shared my philosophy of education from my Bachelor of Education program, and this was around 2009 that I wrote this. And I'm not going to bore you by reading it, you can go through and read it, but what I did is I took that and then I reflected on it. So I talked about how those ideas that I had changed as I worked through the MET program, and I kind of wanted to use that as notes for my future reflection, because I feel like finishing this program doesn't mean an end to your learning. You're always learning as a teacher, and so this is just a checkpoint on your journey. And so I finished by just talking about that teachers are lifelong learners and we shouldn't stagnate, and kind of spreading hope and excitement for the future. And continuing on. So we just finished up on the references page. And I just wanted to thank everybody for bearing with me through my kind of walkthrough of the website, and I hope you learned a little something about my thought process, and maybe you connected with it, or maybe it meant a little bit more to you. And thank you for visiting.